Hey class, we've reached class 19. We have hit a milestone. We are so close to your final. So what I've decided to do today is put this screencast together so you guys would have the information that we talked about in last class when it comes to putting together different types of switching scenarios. So what we're going to do is go over the very basic switching scenarios. And then in class, I'm going to give you more complicated switching scenarios for you guys to try to handle. So are you ready? Let's go. Okay, in our first switching scenario, we have a single pole switch with power in the switch box. This is the most very basic switch that we will do. So the first thing I need to do is run my switch leg up into my box for my light. I'm going to connect it here on the switch leg side. I'm then going to run my neutral up because it takes a neutral to also run a light. So let's take the neutral up. Let's connect it to the neutral side. And what I'm going to do is I want to label those wires, because if you're doing any commercial wiring at all, it would be single conductors, but we're talking about residential wiring. So we need to know what kind of cabling that we're using. So I look right here, and I have a 14-2 cable. Now when I get into my box, let's get this switch connected up. I'm going to take my hot, and I'm going to connect it to one side of the switch. I'm going to take my switch leg, and I'm going to connect it to the other side of the switch. Now if this switch closes, the light will not come on. Why is that? Because the light does need a neutral to operate. So if we take this neutral and we connect it to the neutral of our light, now I have a completed circuit. And with that said, this light right now would be off, but if I were to take this switch paddle and move it down or to the on position, then the light would become on. Let's look at our next scenario. All right, in this one we have a single pole switch with the hot in the light. Now, this one's a little bit more difficult, but I believe all of you guys could do this one. So we know that we have a 14-2 Romex is all we need to go down to our switch, because really all our switch is doing is switching the hot. So I have to get my hot from here down to here, through the switch, and back. I can do that with two conductors. So if I need only two conductors, I would use a 14-2 wire. So let's go ahead and take those two conductors and put them down. I have my white conductor that will go down. And then I have my black conductor, which will also go down to the switch. All right, the code states that I cannot return back to my light on my neutral or my white wire. So if I look at my white wire here, that means this white wire cannot connect to the switch leg side of my light. So how do I do that? What I'll do is I'll take my black wire, which is my hot, connect it to the white, and then I'm going to tape my white wire black. I'm then going to take my white wire in my switch box. I'm going to connect it to one side of my switch. At that point, I'm also going to tape my white wire black. All right, so what else is left? Well, down in the switch box, I need to take my switch leg conductor and I need to put it onto the other side of the switch. So now my hot comes down, goes through the switch, and when the switch is on, this paddle goes down, which makes a connection. It will come back into my light box. Will my light come on? No, because it's not connected. So I need to take my switch leg wire, connect it to the light, and I only need to do one other thing, and that would be to take this neutral that's right here and connect it to the other side of the light. So what I've effectively done is I've ran from here a 14-2 wire from the light box to the switch box, and this is how I was able to switch my light with just using one piece of Romex. Now, let's look at a three-way setup. In a three-way setup, I'm going to still use a 14-2 between the light and my box, but then I'm going to use a 14-3 conductor between my two switch boxes because each switch box takes 3 conductors. So this scenario is a three-way switch with the hot and the switch leg in the same box. This is a scenario that is very, very common. So let's start with our switch leg. Let's go ahead and connect it to one side. And we're going to bring it down here. And let's go ahead and connect it to the switch because we know that we have to have, for a three-way to work, our switch leg on one side and our hot on the other. And we'll see how we're going to get our hot over there in just a minute. So if I take my neutral wire and I connect it to this side of my light, come out of the box, I'm going to come down into this box, and let's go ahead and connect it to the neutral because that's where it goes. So from the switch box to the light, I have a 14-2 conductor. Now let's hook up between our two switches. Now for me to get my hot to one side and my switch leg on the other, since I have my switch leg on this side, I have to get my hot from here to this box. Well, let's go ahead and put our black conductor all the way across. And it's going to hook to the common because our hot has to hook to one common. Our switch leg hooks to the other. And let's connect these with the wire nut right here. Now what this leaves is our red and white wire inside of our 3-wire. So let's take this red and let's take it over to this to our traveler screw on the other switch. And then we have a white wire that we will take from this traveler screw all the way across to this traveler screw. Now when I do that, I have to do something to those wires, and probably I'm going to have black tape or a black marker. So I'm going to take black and I'm going to take that white and I'm going to tape it black inside of the box. I can't tape it black outside the box because it's in Romex. So if I look in this scenario, I have a 14-3 conductor right here. So I have a 14-3 between the boxes. I have a 14-2 coming into the first switch box, and I have a 14-2 coming out of the switch box. And that's how you wire a three-way switch with a hot and a switch leg in the same box. That is very common, and that is one that you will definitely see if you're ever troubleshooting in the field. So let's do something a little bit different here. How about if we have a three-way with the hot in one box and the switch leg in the other? In this scenario, then, I'm going to bring my switch leg. I'm going to bring it down and around. I'm going to connect it to the common screw on the three-way switch. I'm going to take my neutral out of the light. I'm going to bring it down and around and put it towards the bottom of this box because I know I'm going to have a joint there. Now if I look here, alright, if I look here, I'm going to have a 14-2 wire coming from the switch box, or my second switch box, up to my light box. So most of the wires are already connected in this box. Let's start connecting wires in this box. I'm going to take my black wire, that's my hot, and I'm going to bring it to the common screw. I'm bringing it to the common screw because I need my hot on one side and my switch leg on the other if a three-way is going to work. Now there's nothing I can do with this neutral right now except do this. Let's go ahead and get our 3-wire across from one side to the other, because I have to carry my neutral all the way through to this box. So if I take my white wire from my 3-wire and I bring it through, I'm going to connect it here with the joint. I'm going to connect it here with the joint. So now I have a neutral that goes all the way through. That's half of what my light needs. Now it needs to get power. So for me to get power, I need to go from this box to this box. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm using a 14-3. So in a 14-3, I have a red wire and a black wire left. So let's go ahead and hook the red wire to this traveler screw. Let's bring it across to this traveler screw and connect it. Let's take the black wire from this traveler screw and move it to this traveler screw and connect it. Right here then, I have a 14.3 Romex. And if I look at this scenario, I have a neutral that goes all the way through up to my light. I have my hot that goes into my common. It goes up into a traveler. It goes through the traveler, back down into the switch to the other common, back up to the light. In this scenario, what you'll find is the light will be on. If you move any of these switches from one side or one traveler to the other, at this point in time, the light would go off. Let's move on to a four-way switch setup. And in this one, it's going to be similar to the three-way. So let's go ahead with, I have my four-way with the hot in one. So here's my hot in this box. Now I need to get my switch leg in the other three-way box. We're going to do that using a 14.2. Well, remember last time we went ahead and ran the switch leg down and right to the common screw. Why do we do that? Well, because we need to have our hot on one side and our switch leg on the other. So we know that the common screw is where that switch leg goes. Let's take our white wire, connect it to the neutral. Let's bring it down. Now it does not connect to any screws. It just sits in the box waiting for the neutral from the first box in the three-way. So now I'm partly set up here inside of my switch box. Now let's go ahead and finish or begin to start our three-way box. I'm going to take it from here and I'm going to put my hot on this common. So now I have my common or my hot on one common. I have my switch leg on the other common. So I have partly everything set up for my three-way. Now I know I have to get my neutral from here to here. And then I have two other screws in each of these boxes that have to go from switch to switch. So I can assume that I do need a 14.3 wire. So let's start with our white out of our 14.3. Let's go from this. Whoops. Let's start with a white. Let me come out of this box and go to this box. And let me come out of this box and go to this box. Now in this box, I'm going to make a joint on my neutrals. In this box, I'm going to make a joint on my neutrals. And in this box, I'm going to make a joint on my neutrals. So I have one wire on my 14.3. The rest of the wires are a black and a red. So let's take them across. Let's connect my red here over to my red here. Let's connect the red across here over to the red right here. Now the only thing I have left for 14.3 is a black wire. So I'm going to come from here and I'm going to go over to this screw in the four-way switch. I'm going to take my other three wire and go from here to this four-way screw in this switch. So in this scenario, between the first three-way and the four-way switch, I have right here a 14.3. Now from this four-way switch to the second three-way switch, I also have a 14.3. So in this scenario, the hot comes in, goes up the paddle to the red traveler, goes from the red traveler down to the black traveler because of the way the switch is. And now if I switch the four-way switch the other way, this yellow paddle would go up to the red and the black would go down to the black. So the red and the blacks would go straight through. But in this scenario, the red goes down to the black, goes to the black on the three-way here, which is not connected to anything because right now the switch leg is connected to the red traveler. So in this scenario, the light would be off. If I were to take this paddle and move it down to here, and this no longer existed, then my light would be on. Well, that's all I have for this video. I just want you guys to have this so you'll be able to study it and also to help you use these in the scenarios for class that's coming up tomorrow. I can't wait to see what you guys do with these switches. As always, please take notes, or write these things down. And last but not least, be safe. I'll see you next class.